Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new season of Gloves Off. New season, higher frequency, zero BS. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana Sandar, and if you are new to the show, I'm glad to have you here because this is a show where we really cut through the noise, get real about stuff that really matters, wealth, health, businesses, and really talk about what's working and what isn't working. Because I have to say, I feel like most of us in society have been conditioned to continue to do what's not working. And what is the definition of insanity? Well, it's doing the same thing all the time and expecting a different result. And so what this show is about is doing things differently so you can actually get that different result, which is what I'm all about. So if you have been a watcher of the show, well, welcome back. So I'm excited. I also want to give a big season shout out to Listening to Smile, where they create frequency-based music that helps recalibrate our nervous systems. We don't realize how much our nervous systems are taxed by modern society. And, big shout out to them. Not only did they create the music for the show opener, but also the show opener as well. So if you're interested in listening to some kind of frequency-based music, you can definitely find them. I'm going to pop up the link here. It's listeningtosmile.com, and you can take a peek and see what they've got going on. And I'm excited because today I'm going to be talking to Marysol Uribe. And oh God, I always say her name like kind of wrong because the way she says it, it sounds really poetic because she's got that little bit of an accent, which makes it awesome. But we are really going to dive into a very important conversation about health and wealth, how life is unpredictable. So if you're ready to think clearer, live a little bit bolder, and play bigger, well, you're in the right space. So we're going to get into it. So just to give you a little bit of information about Marysol, she is a nurse and she's an entrepreneur as well as a wealth strategist. So I met her because we partnered up in the health and wealth space. Obviously, we have a lot of synergies and more than we realized initially when we first met, which is often the case when you're attracted to somebody based on their vibe, based on their frequency. You sometimes just say, oh, I just like this person. But then as you get to know them a little bit better and know more about them, you start to connect the dots as to why you really liked talking to them in the first place. She is the founder of UribeInsurance.com, helping families and entrepreneurs protect their future. She is the host of RX Wealth Podcast on her own YouTube channel, so check that out as well. And what she does is she brings a rare blend of healthcare experience and financial strategy, which is something I love because Marysol and I really share that. We are bold in talking about health as well as wealth because many people don't want to talk about either, honestly. They're probably a little more apt to talk about their health, but definitely not ready to talk about wealth. And it's something that plagues most of society because we're not open as we should be about it. So again, Marysol has seen firsthand that life is fragile. I've seen the same thing. And you know what? Preparation should really not be optional at all. And that's really what this episode is about, protecting your future, protecting what you've built, because life isn't just about creating wealth. It's about protecting what you've built as well. So let's bring Marysol on and get into this conversation.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to get into this conversation with you.
Absolutely. Life is so precious and valuable. And what a better way to start than just with gratitude and acknowledging our current state, right? Whether it's, you being able to breathe without an oxygen mask, an oxygen tank, just not having any cords attached to you. I think it's such a blessing.
You are so right. I mean, I just had to take a deep breath because there's so many people out there who are struggling with their health. And I agree. I mean, health and your well-being is so important. And when you start life and every day with gratitude that you wake up, you're healthy, you don't have a chronic illness, you're able to move around. Your worst problem is, oh, I got all these things to do. Oh, well, great. At least we can do the things, right? I mean, it's just all about how we frame it.
Exactly. And, all throughout my career, we were exposed to illnesses and people in vulnerable states and autoimmune conditions. And, life can just be so unpredictable. The best thing we could do is to really plan.
Totally. And so, talking about planning, I mean, how many Americans actually plan for their future?
You know what? It's about in the 50 to 60% range, not too many of us at all. Um,
Hmm.
Surely, we're attempting to go after those who aren't protected yet, who don't have this financial strategy in place. Perhaps you're listening and you don't have a family CFO that you can talk to. Well, if that's you, then we're happy to meet you.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so important because people don't realize that. Well, this is, I would say, the thing that people don't realize. I think a lot of people are focused on maybe one or the other that they feel is more important. So, for example, I know people who are very, very into their health space. I mean, I am an avid health nut, working out, martial arts, you name it, I'm doing it. So I meet people in that space very, very easily because they're very interested in health and well-being. So they're watching their diet, they're eating all the right things, they're doing all these things. They're not really focused on their wealth. So the irony is this. You're probably too young for this, but there's a song by Alanis Morissette that I love, and it's called Ironic. And she really just talks about the irony of life. And I think health and wealth is one of those ironies where if you have health, but you don't have money to enjoy it, your life falls a little bit flat. It's like listening to the same chord on the piano over and over again. Well, we need more variability than that. If you have wealth and you don't have your health, you don't have the real ability to enjoy it because you're not healthy. Your mind share is focused on the fact that you're not healthy. So you can have all this wealth, not the health. And really what the goal is to combine both so that you have a full life. Now your life doesn't sound like just one chord striking on the piano, but now it sounds like an orchestra. And that is the difference. You can hear you can feel the flavors of life. You can enjoy it in such a different way. And people don't realize that. They think chasing money is bad. Money is bad. I mean, that right there is the best way to keep yourself poor for the rest of your life. Once you think money is bad, you're just not going to attract it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And, part of it too is becoming conscious of what you really want, right? What is it that are your goals? Is it to have this balance, this sort of yin and yang with health and wealth? Or, are you leaning more towards one side that you're possibly neglecting the other?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a recent conversation with an associate, and he was telling me how his client makes so much money that he said, I want to have this much for retirement. And by the time I retire, I want to be able to golf. And that was his passion.
Mm-hmm.
And he retired, he had the money, but he was only able to golf for about 2 years. And then he was hit with a chronic condition.
That is such an important point. So I have my own thoughts about that because that's how I was raised to think about retirement. You just put everything off. You just focus on making money, man, money, 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 making money. Well, I already did that. I literally lived, I feel like a whole portion of my life in that mannerism. I'm going to just work like crazy and just retire at 50. Then I'll start living my life. Well, somewhere along the 50, well, at 48, that completely changed for me. I started thinking differently. And I said, first of all, I just want to live now. And second of all, I don't really think I want to retire. I just don't want to be doing what I'm doing right now. So that's when everything that the script flipped at that moment for me. Now I work in a way that I'm enjoying my life along the way. Forget retirement. I don't know. I don't care. I'll retire when I feel like it, but I'm not going to retire, then enjoy my life. And often many of these people who think in that way, they burn themselves out. They are sacrificing their health for this retirement plan that they don't get to enjoy.
Yes. And so this is really a space to reflect and be mindful about what you're doing right now. Because surely you could catch yourself at any moment's notice and it's just a decision. It's, hey Marisol, hey Dr. Sundar. I am ready to make a change because I do want to enjoy life and what it has to offer. But I'm stuck between YOLO and planning for the future. So that's when you give us a ring.
It's cute. It's so true because you really need a good balance. And you know what? Balance is not that easy. One thing I realized in my life, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but for some reason, balance has always been easier for me than I think it should have been. I mean, just once I consciously wrap my head around what that really means, it's always been pretty easy. So I'm just kind of a balanced person, I think. But I understand that for other people, it doesn't come that easy and they need a little bit of help. And there's nothing wrong with needing help. I mean, I need help in other areas. That's just not the place where somehow I just tend to be pretty balanced. But other areas, I could use some help. So asking for help is never a bad thing. And I think that that is one thing that stops people from planning properly for their future. The things that I've heard in the people that I've talked to, it's usually they don't know where to go. They don't know how to get started. They're afraid to ask for help. Sometimes there's a little embarrassment around their debt or something because it is a little bit of a process where we have to get into it, right? Where we have to really, I feel like, undress people financially. Yeah. So it's a little
That's
uncomfortable.
a good way to put it, if we saw people naked at the hospital, of course we can see people naked in their finances, right? And people trust us. Why? Because imagine coming from the healthcare field already with the best intentions in mind and just, transferring it into this sector. A lot of people come to us for the basics like, oh, just, getting a trust because I have a home and I don't have one yet. And it's like, okay, well, let's connect you with our attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's debt management. We can connect people with with a resource for that. But you're right. I mean, I think once you come from the healthcare field, you're already used to people being vulnerable. There is a level of trust, I think, that healthcare professionals have earned, from people we talk to, because we've seen people at their worst, degraded, ill, just undressed in so many ways that it is something that I think comes easier for us because of that. We've seen people in their most vulnerable positions. So financially vulnerable, I think, is actually less vulnerable than physically vulnerable.
Yes. Although for some, there's.
That's true. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Like, oh,
For me,
okay.
I think because I have an easier time just talking about money, but I have a hard time being physically vulnerable, like, incapacitated in any way. I hurt my shoulder, a few weeks, about 2 months ago. And I just hated that feeling of being incapacitated. And I wasn't incapacitated, but it felt like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I had a travel nursing experience at South Lake Tahoe. And I was the only healthcare pro in the facility. And surely, these inmates, they wanted to speak to the nurse. So yeah, they're like super open when it comes to their health and whatnot. But yeah, you guys who are men, I think real men talk about their finances openly as well.
True. I think people who are really looking to make a difference just really are more open about these things. The other big mistake I would say that people make, and I have to call it out because I have children and nobody seems to want to talk about money with their children. And that's how I grew up. We didn't talk about money. We just talked about how there wasn't ever enough of it, and I'm like, well, that's really not a great thing to put out there all the time. But that was the conversation. There's not enough of it. It doesn't grow on trees. You got to hoard it. You cannot spend it. I mean, those were the conversations my family had about money. Well, again, I started having my own revelations as I got older and started thinking differently. And I just said, you know what? I want to talk to my kids about money. Obviously, different conversations at different ages. When they were young, we talked about different things. Now they're adults. I actually talk to my children very openly about money now. I mean, they're adults. My oldest is about to be 27. My youngest is about to be 24. I just have money conversations with them left and right.
Good. Because it's about what tax engineering strategies you have, right?
Mhm.
Is it the tax now? Is it the tax deferred? Or is it the tax advantaged? Most people have 0 to 5% in the tax advantaged. And if
Mhm.
tax is already a constant, if you know you're going to pay the most throughout your lifetime, then you might as well strategize for it.
Yeah. And most people don't even understand that there's these buckets to put money into. They just immediately just think 401k. That's it. Do you
Hmm.
have savings? Yeah, I have a savings account and I got a 401k or maybe a Roth. But there's so much more available than just that. And then most everybody out there doesn't even understand what bracket that falls into. Is it the tax me now, tax me later? They don't know. They just know
Yes.
they got a 401k. And I'm not against any of these vehicles, but the reality is people don't understand that sometimes you may have to create some sort of more nuanced plan so that maybe you have access to something sooner than maybe 59 and a half. Maybe you want to have some things that are taxed now, some things that are taxed later. You don't want to pay all your taxes when you take it out, but people aren't thinking in this way. And this is really important. And honestly, this was something I didn't even know till I just, probably later in my life. I mean, I was just putting away money and I don't know, I didn't even really understand what I was doing.
Yeah. And what I was alluding to earlier, guys, if you can, flirt with women so easily, I don't think you want to flirt with the future of your finances.
I love that. That's so cute. I agree. I agree. You do not want to flirt with the future of your finances. And the reality is this. This is something I wanted to talk about because there's a lot of talk out there about women who are gold diggers and this and that. I just think that needs to be reframed because I would say that a woman of a certain stature, she is not gold digging, but she wants a financial equal or at least a financial contender in the realm of where she's at. These days, women are earning a lot and are very successful in their positions. And, I think the reality is we're not looking for somebody to take care of.
Hmm.
And nor do we necessarily want to be taken care of, but we want somebody who's in the same ish playing field as us.
Oh, I can totally piggyback on that because I'm single right now. And yeah, I want to say that, we're seeking someone that has got our back, right? And
Mhm.
someone that is already familiar with this finance language, who
Mhm.
already walks the talk,
Mhm.
and yeah, someone with the mindset of continuous growth.
Right. And that means not only for me personally, professionally, but also financially. So if these are foreign concepts to you, I probably I don't know. I'm just not interested. That's the reality. I mean, I dated a guy for a very short period of time and I didn't know this about him, but he literally had no money saved, had a
Mm,
terrible credit score. And, no judgment, but that is not a person that I can consider for anything future wise. And why? Because I look at my children who are in their 20s who already have savings and have a high credit score. So how can I do that to myself? Be with somebody. So, right there, life partner is out. Like that's not consideration for me with
yes,
somebody like that. And
it's a
no,
reflection.
no judgment, but we all have a right to I've been a good steward of my life. I want to be with somebody else who's a good steward of theirs.
Yeah, it's like a financial report card.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Took the words right out of my mouth. How you do
Yes.
one thing is how you do everything. Usually, if it's that way with your finances, then you're irresponsible in other ways of your life. And I'm sorry, this is like for anybody this offends, like that's what Gloves Off is about. So sometimes I just tell it like it is. And if you're
Yes,
offended, well, you're not the right person for the show.
exactly. Well, we're calling you up to consider things that perhaps you haven't considered. And, it's a glove of satin, this is a nice glove today.
Exactly. We're going to bring out, the goal is to call it out so we can call it up. And that's really it, because people need bold truth. So, for a while I was, I do, a lot of different things in my world, and I love talking to people about weight loss. And one thing I realized, and, again, when I first started doing those consultations, I just kind of have a bold truth about me, right? And I thought, oh, I don't know, but this is how I'm going to do it, because these people probably need it and they've been coddled and have not been told the truth.
Mm.
Do you know, every person I talk to, they say, thank you. I've been coddled for so long. I haven't been told the truth. And you just told the truth. And it
Yeah.
wasn't mean. I just told the truth. I said, listen, we've got to fix this diet. We've got to fix this. We've got to be consistent. This is how we stay thin. This is how we stay healthy. And they're like, well, nobody ever told me that. They just give me quick fixes. I'm not about quick fixes. I'm about longevity, long-term health, long-term wealth, and that's important to me. So I think it's really, really important to just talk about these things in a very truthful way.
Yes. And when we ask you, what do you have going on for retirement? And you say nothing, it's not to cause any shame, but it's just to bring out the truth. Because it's from that truth, a place of truth, that we can then plan and act accordingly.
Absolutely. Then we know where the baseline is, and then we know we want to go up from there. And the reality is, I think sometimes people think it's too late. I don't think it's ever too late. It's always better to start anything than not start.
Yes. I
Always.
agree.
So I think it's just these things that people get stuck in, these loops of shame and doubt and feeling a certain way about things. But once we call it out and we put it in the forefront, honestly, it loses its power too. I
Yes.
think anything lurking in the shadows has a lot of power. Once you call it out, it really loses a lot of its power right there.
Oh, absolutely. One thing is to journal about it. Another thing is to talk to someone about it.
Hmm.
And then finally, to finally act upon it and change your circumstance, right? Because you open the show with saying the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, how
Hmm.
can you expect to have a different result if you're doing the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it takes that shift and it takes that awareness and being courageous to confront the new you and say, you know what? I do want to break this cycle. I do want to be a better example for my kids, my family, my business partner, my
Hmm.
employees. I want
Hmm.
to set the example this time.
And that is such a great point, because a lot of times we do get stuck in these loops. We get stuck in loops of something we've seen, something we've done over and over again. It's very hard, but very courageous to break a cycle, to say, no more. I'm going to do things differently from here on out. And that is such a courageous stance. And all of us, we get stuck in something, right? I mean, we all get stuck. My cycle was what I watched from my parents. And what I saw was that, like I said, we don't talk about money. We just talk about how it doesn't grow on trees, and it's very hard to get and it's very hard to replace, and you got to hoard it all. And that was what I got. And I don't agree with any of that at all, but that's where I was. Suddenly, I watched my mother give away complete financial power to my father. Complete. He was the breadwinner. But I did the same thing. I was
Mm.
the breadwinner, but I gave complete financial control away. Well, let me tell you, I learned very quickly that that is a cycle that I break. Who knows how long that's been going on in my family line, but I was the first one to say, no, no more. I take control of my own finances. So it's important for all of us to take control. Even if it's the other way around, even if it's a man who's giving the control to it doesn't matter. I think each person has a fiscal responsibility to themselves, even if they decide to delegate it, but still know what's happening. Have to know what's happening.
Yes, I think everyone should know about the inflows and outflows of your household.
Hmm.
And yes, you can have full trust and faith in your partner. And
Right.
it doesn't hurt to have a second set of eyes to just review some things.
Absolutely. And not only that, what if you don't agree on something? Maybe you have a different idea than they do about how something should be managed. Then, that's just a great discussion to have, so it could be better and improved.
Right. There are these pillars of financial stability,
Hmm.
these financial foundations that a lot of people have never even heard of, but we bring to light. And surely, you can have one spouse on the call, but if the other partner isn't there, well, it's kind of like we're playing a little back and forth in the catch up game. If you make financial decisions with your partner, then definitely this should be something that should be spoken of, as a group.
100%. You want to review a few of those pillars that people don't know about?
Sure. So the first one is having a trust. Very important. So crucial if you have a home, because you want to make sure that it doesn't fall into the hands of the government. You don't want it to go through probate. So what you do in advance is you have a legal document that stipulates who that home belongs to and who it will belong to upon your death. Likewise, if you have young children, minors can get into a trust formulation so that they do not fall into the hands of the foster care system. In the case of you perhaps not being present as a guardian anymore. And these are situations that happen, whether you wish for them or not. Like we're saying, it's important to plan before you ever may need to encounter that situation. At least you've got your bases covered.
So important, so important, because we just don't know what happens in life. It's so unpredictable. So, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really important to talk about all these things. Also, so what is your take on, how people should get started to plan better financially? What is the first thing they should do? Is it the trust?
Well, I think you should take a look at the annual income and the annual expenses. And then from there, determine sort of what's left, right? And then from whatever is left, ask yourself, what can I then do to strategize for your financial future? And so that's where the planning comes in. So we
Hmm.
talked about one pillar, which is the trust. Certainly invest into that, setting that up. It's a one and done. You do it and then you're good. When it comes to another strong pillar, people depend on each other's income as the breadwinners. God forbid you pass too soon, which we're all going to pass. Some are more conscious of their mortality than others. Others want to totally dismiss that fact. Others, acknowledge it. And so if you acknowledge that, then we're talking to the right audience. Certainly, we want to plan for the future of your loved ones who you would leave behind. Cut them a check for hundreds or thousands of dollars, so that the mortgage is taken care of, so that they're good for the next couple years. Say if you're a stay-at-home mom and you were relying on your spouse's income, well, you would be taken care of in that regard. Or say you are a stay-at-home mom, you also bring a lot of value to the table, to the household. Surely, you should have income protection as well, that you could potentially pass down to your loved ones too. So that's a topic that we talk about.
Which is such an important topic because we often see in some consults where somebody says, oh well, so and so's not working, so I don't want a policy on them, but the reality is that that person is still contributing a lot to the household. And
Yeah.
I feel it's almost an indirect way of saying that the person is not valuable enough. I don't know. I feel like every time that's said, I watch the other person's face and I go, oh, it's just like, it's really indirectly saying exactly that, which isn't true. And I'm sure it's not the intention. It's just a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge of what that really means if that person was gone.
Yes.
We don't think about it because they're here.
Right. And again, it's just not confronting that potential possibility or that foresight, right? And so that's something that we bring to light, right? Like, hey, this. can happen. It's only a matter of time. Now, when it does happen, what would you want that to look like?
Mm-hmm. And that's true. I mean, I think the paradox between health and wealth and why one sometimes is easier to talk about than these kind of planning things is one is dealing with vitality, which, people always want more of when we're talking about health. But once it comes to wealth, people know that the undertone of that is their demise, that their death and their mortality. That is always a hard thing. But, the reality is, like you said, we're all death, taxes, those are the things that are sure in life. And we might as well be proper stewards of how that happens, meaning that when you pass, you don't want to leave behind some problems for your children. That is not what I want my children to be dealing with. I'd rather leave it so that they are taken care of and that they are not dealing with a bunch of red tape and hoops that they have to figure out, that it's clean. It just does what it's supposed to. And that is a gift of leaving something behind in that way.
Yeah. And for those who are listening who are of Mexican culture like me, we spend 20 plus $1,000 on a quinceañera, a coming of age birthday party.
Yes.
Why not be that parent that starts a kids fund for your child and just sees it compound and watches it ride into the multiple percentage points of interest rate that you could get in these plans and strategies, where at the end of the day, she could potentially pick to go on like a cruise instead, with all her friends. So it's certainly having these money conversations early so that you can see the compounded fruits and benefits of what this little plan could grow into.
You bring up such a good point because yes, I mean the quinceañeras are very expensive, so are weddings. People don't think twice about spending all that money on those things, but they do hesitate, interestingly, on putting money away.
Yeah.
They do. All of a sudden you talk to them about putting this much away and they go, oh, I don't know, I can't do that. Well, you just spent this much on this.
Yeah, and people even go to debt for it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't care about those things as much as, I mean, I had a very, reasonable wedding when I got married. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't, even though I wasn't paying for it, I couldn't see having my dad spend such crazy amounts of money on a wedding. Most of them end in divorce. I'm not being pessimist, but it doesn't really matter. It's not the wedding that matters. It's the marriage that matters.
yes. You can get a virtual wedding these days for like $100.
Exactly. It's the marriage that matters, not the wedding. I feel like we do it backwards. We put so much emphasis on the wedding, not as much on the marriage. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, yeah. Put more emphasis on the reception than the actual ceremony and the actual day in and day out over a span of years to keep each other happy. And
Yeah, and choose each other every day over and over again. Imagine, few people, if as much time and effort you put into the wedding details, if you put all of that time and effort into your marriage details, we might not have such a high divorce rate.
yes, yes. It is about choosing yourself every day, kind of recommitting with your vows every day, right?
Yeah, your vows, your values. I mean, that's really what we have to be true to. And again, this may not be for everybody, but for the people who this is one of their pillars and one of their values, well, we want you to know what is available for you to hold yourself to a higher standard. Again, there are people who don't want to leave their children anything. They don't know if they care what their children do, and that's fine. I mean, no judgment here. But this conversation is for the people who really want to leave something behind, leave a legacy behind. And that's, for me, it's just really important. When I leave this earth, in my last breath, I want to know that I left behind a legacy of things that did good for this world. That's just something I've always felt. Since I was a kid, I was saying crazy stuff like that, not even knowing what that even meant.
That
But
is so beautiful.
I just didn't even know. I said, I used to say, my mom and dad used to ask me what I wanted to do. I said, I want to change the world for the better. I don't know, I was 5. But then I could tell that that didn't really excite them. So then I switched to, I'm going to be a doctor. Well, that really excited them.
Twinkly eyes all of a sudden.
Oh, I know. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do. But then here's the thing. I realized somewhere along the way that being a doctor, I only changed one life at a time in certain ways. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying each person, each soul is here for a specific purpose. And once we identify what that is, it's a little harder to stay in a place that is not in alignment. So there was a point where I knew, I think it was the first time I went on TV, that I was like, wait a minute, I can impact people, lots of people now with this thing called the
Yeah.
television that now thousands of people are watching me, and that's why I think I got so interested in the media, because now, you and I are sitting here talking one on one, but this podcast has over 20,000 viewers. So now I'm impacting 20,000 lives with,
Yes.
with this conversation. And then, yes, we do the one-on-one too, but at least some people will just take this conversation and say, well, I learned something from this. I'm not ready to do anything right now, but I'm just going to think about it for a while and whatever, that's fine. But at least now you're thinking about it when you weren't. Now there's another subset of people who have been thinking about it, didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go, didn't know how to get started. Now they're ready to make a move. Those are the people we want to talk to. Then there's other people who are like, I don't care about this. And that's fine too. It's just, everything is okay. We're here for the people who are ready to take the next step.
Yes, and the reality is that you're always having a conversation either about money or about your health. And we've been on both sides. And we know that you could lose sleep over these things, and you really don't have to when you just get pointed into the right resource.
Totally, totally. I want to kind of end with any other points that you have here. I wanted to kind of end with something that I had in mind, which was something that. Do you have any other points that we didn't cover that you want to mention?
Well, I would just say, Dr. K and I are here for you guys. Surely, if this resonates with you, give us a ring. You'll know where to find us. And yeah, it's just coming from a place of generational wealth, right? Wealth transfer. If people struggle with this philanthropy piece, but you're really kind of being philanthropic amongst your own family when you
Oh,
think about it.
I love that. I love that. That is so true, because that is important, right? So to be philanthropic to our own family. What I wanted to kind of say was, number one, obviously one thing I love about Marysol and I is we have the best conversations. They flow so easily. They always have. And I met her. I mean, I probably talked about this a lot on the show, but I meet a lot of fabulous people on LinkedIn. And that's how Marysol and I met. So I was alluding earlier in the show, and I wanted to just close out that part of the conversation, that, you meet somebody, you like them, but you don't really even know why, because you don't know them that well. So what I wanted to say was some closing thoughts about, our, how we met and our, as we become more friends. And, I see so many synergies in us, and I would say first, Marysol was a nurse. Obviously I'm a physician. So we both come from that healthcare space. I mentioned this earlier. And then we both have no issue talking about money, which is something that I also really love, how transparent she is about money. You are also a very family-oriented person. So that was another big thing that I saw, because I sat down with you and Annette, and, I just saw such a pleasant vibe amongst you two. And then I think you later told me she was your sister-in-law. And, oh, and Annette is lovely, by the way. I mean, okay, I'm going to have her on the show, because that woman, 5 children she has. She literally popped out a baby, then she shows up at work like she's fine. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I only have 2. And I was like, I don't know. She
Yeah.
just does it in a way like I don't even understand. But she has this glow about her, because you could tell she's in alignment. She didn't have 5 kids because somebody thought she should have 5 kids. She had 5
Mm,
kids because she wanted to have 5 kids. She does
yeah.
this business because she wants to do this business. So anyway, I saw that. I saw this very pleasant family dynamic, because the theory about sister-in-laws is they have to hate each other, blah, blah, blah. And I love that that wasn't what was going on. You guys are in business together. I love it.
Mhm.
Then, I just see this desire to do good for people, not do good for yourself, but just do good for other people. I share that same desire. So I saw so many of these synergies that I didn't understand what they were. Of course, sometimes when you first meet somebody, you're involved in the conversation. You don't put your mind into that to figure those things out. But I wanted to mention that to you because I felt that that was such a strong pull for me. And, then I just was so interested in this financial sector. I always have been. Then I went and got my financial professional license because I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more. I've been in the investing space a long time. I've been looking at money and all these things, but I wanted to increase my knowledge base. And, I was grateful that through you, I was more intrigued and said, I've always wanted to do this.
Yeah.
The universe does align you with the right people when there's the right desire rooted from the right space of alignment.
I love that. Thanks so much for your acknowledgments. I see you as such a powerful woman, someone who wants to leave an impact for thousands, millions of people. And surely with this medium, we can have this one conversation and have it go to many. So I'm really excited to continue our partnership and just seeing how many lives we can help.
100%, 100%. Well, thank you so much for being here and, speaking freely on all these topics. And I've enjoyed it very much. For everybody who's watching, touch base with Marysol. You can see her Instagram handle there. You can connect with her there. You can connect with me. I'll pop up my YouTube channel later. You can also connect with me here on LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever's the easiest place for you. And thank you again, Marysol, for joining us today on Gloves Off.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Bye. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. She is absolutely lovely, as you guys can see, very well-spoken, has a very calm mannerism. So many things I love about her. I could go on and on. But if you guys are looking to follow me on YouTube, this is my YouTube channel. You can scan that QR code. Please, if you like this information, if this show has been valuable to you, please like it, share, comment. I love seeing the comments on YouTube. The show also streams on LinkedIn and also on Facebook and Instagram as well. So, and then one more special thanks to our sponsor for today's episode. And this is for Get Healthy USA because we're talking about health and wealth. Love talking about those things together. Well, I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of the weekend. I know there's not much of it left, but thank you for joining us for another episode of Gloves Off. And then we will see you next week.